Shopify is a platform built for growth, whether you're just starting out or already running a thriving business. From managing inventory to creating a seamless checkout experience, Shopify is designed to handle it all. And it doesn't stop there. Shopify helps you sell everywhere your customers are, online or in person. It's the ultimate tool for turning big dreams into big wins. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/OPP.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special episode of The Prosecutors. Today, we're going to talk to someone who has been involved in this case from the very beginning, Domini Teer, who most of you will know is Damien Echols' girlfriend from the first Paradise Lost movie. After that movie, she and her child, Damien's son, pretty much moved on from this case, tried to avoid it. You can imagine why. So she hasn't really spoken about this case in more than 30 years, and we were really honored that she would trust us enough to have this conversation. A few things, I'll give you some observations going in of what to expect. Number one, it has been over 30 years. There are a lot of things she doesn't remember. That's not that surprising. I found her to be very credible, so I think when she says she doesn't remember something, she's telling the truth. She really doesn't remember it. There's a few interesting insights about the way this case has been reported, her perspective on what exactly was going on in West Memphis, which often clashes with some of the things we've talked about and some of the reports the police made. So I think this will be interesting for you. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you again to Domini for joining us.
I just really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this stuff. To start out, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Domini. I retired. I don't know what else.
You know, it's
Really
funny.
there, not it.
It's funny because you're a grandma now, right?
I am a grandma now. That is true. Yeah.
Congratulations. It's
Thank
funny
you.
because 30 whatever years ago or longer. I don't even know how long it's been. You're in that documentary, Paradise Lost. And for so many people, it's like you're frozen in time. You know what I mean? Like you as a teenager is what people say. That has to be a little strange for you.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I watched it. I watched that documentary once after I had my kids and everything.
Hmm.
And it was strange. It was strange to watch yourself on TV.
Yeah.
A little weird.
Did you take part in the other two, or did you just take part in the first one? I don't remember. I've seen them all, but I don't recall.
Just the one after that, I moved away
Yeah.
after shortly after the trial was done. I moved away quickly.
Yeah. And we saw you obviously in very vulnerable moments. What was that like? You're in this trial, someone you love is on trial for murder, the father of your child. That had to have been
Friend,
just one of the
my
worst things that ever
friend.
happened to you.
Yeah. Yep. I would not wish that upon my worst enemy at all.
Yeah.
Most definitely a terrible experience for anybody who's ever been through it. I'm sure that they can relate.
Just to go ahead and get it out of the way, your opinion is that Damien, Jason, and Jesse are absolutely innocent of this, correct?
This is my opinion. I know for a fact they're absolutely innocent.
When you
Period.
say for a fact, so for people out there who doubt that, who think maybe they are guilty, what can you say that you think might convince them?
Because I was standing right next to them the day that these kids were supposedly kidnapped and murdered. doing anything. We weren't near there ever. We didn't know them. We didn't know their family members. We didn't know anything about them at all.
And I'll back up in a second because I want to get some background. But so one of the things that's been said by some people is that Damien would say things, whether just sort of like he's a cocky teenager or whatever, or the people who said they heard it are just lying, that he would say things about how he did it or he was involved. There's the infamous softball girls. He was at the softball
Yeah,
game.
no. That was a bunch of lies. That never happened. That's something that they either decided to make up in their own little heads or the police talked them into saying it. I don't know. Not real.
But you never heard anything like that.
No, never, ever, never.
So how old were you when you met Damien?
I was 16. I was 16.
And am I right to say it's funny because I look at these cold files and I listen to trial transcripts and I watch the documentaries and there's so many little things that aren't clear from all that. Is your birth name Domini?
My birth, yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's been reported some places that you changed your name to Domini.
I changed my name?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's not real.
Okay. So there you go.
Birth certificate says Domini.
Is it Domini or were you ever called Dominique?
No.
No. Okay. Also interesting. It's
If
so
they
funny.
did, they messed up my name and they weren't talking about me. They must have been talking about somebody else.
That's so interesting because you'll read. I'm trying to remember. Let's see if I have it in my notes actually. What people said your birth name. It's so funny. It's just so funny because people come up with this stuff that you had changed your name. I guess maybe when Damien changed his name or
What?
something.
You know what? To be honest with you, we had been dating for a very long time before I even knew that he went by any other name than Damien.
His name had never been Michael.
His name was Michael. Yeah, I didn't even know that. Somebody had, I think a friend of his or somebody said Michael, and I looked at him and I'm like, and he responded to it, and I looked at him all weird, like, who's Michael? And he's like, oh, that's me.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
I love that. I love that. So you guys started dating. Now, so one thing I definitely would like to nail down. Just and the answer to this question does not I know that there was a lot of the sort of satanic panic stuff going on. I know that the police and the prosecutors focused on that a lot in the trial. They got the crazy expert up there with the mail order doctorate and all that stuff. But I will say, reading the stuff, it does seem like Damien he was at least into, like they talk about the cult, right? Damien at one point says that he was in something called the Order of the Divine Light. Does that ring any bells for you?
Nope. Maybe there was okay. You have to remember, I was 16, so everything that was said in the trial, I just kind of tuned in or tuned out. You got to adults were focused on it. I was not. So there was a lot of the stuff that was mentioned during the trial that I just.
Do you remember guys named Murray Ferris and Chris Luttrell?
Murray, I knew Murray. I knew Murray before I knew Damien and Jason. We knew each other from before that. So when I was
Murray Ferris apparently told the police that he was the head of the Order of Divine Light, which was a cult of white witches.
Okay.
See, this is the thing.
He was a best friend of one of my ex-boyfriends, so he wasn't the order of anything, as far as I know. He was just the guy that wanted to kind of be included in a group with us as a friend.
So do you think he would have just said that? I mean, I don't want
I
to say
mean,
making stuff up, but
I
like,
don't know. I mean, he could have to somebody else, wasn't to me.
gotcha. There's another report that you told someone, the police or the prosecutors, that you drank blood and it was no big deal because your mother drank blood. Have you ever heard
Oh,
that?
that's awful. Terrible. No, I never drank anyone's blood.
Uh-huh.
No, thank you. That's gross. And that's kind of mean to say to my disabled mother. That's kind of rude.
Um,
Wow.
does your cousin was, I guess, had edited or was part of some sort of like alternative art magazine out in California, um, about vampires. Do you remember that?
See, she's always been into the occult, vampires, pagan stuff, tarot cards, Renaissance fair, all that stuff. She's always been into that ever since we were kids. Growing up, it's just who she is. To me,
But I'm
it's
gonna
no
guess
big
that was
deal,
like,
you know.
today that wouldn't be any big deal at all. You know what I
Right,
mean? I mean,
but
but at the
then
time
it
it was
was,
like,
yeah, it was not the time or the place to be told or to be kind of caught up in that kind of stuff.
hmm.
It was the wrong place, wrong time.
Did you know Deanne Holcomb, Damien's ex-girlfriend?
Not really, no.
She's another one who talks about the whole like satanic thing, right? And she told police that she introduced Damien to sort of the occult side of things. And
I honestly have no idea. I never met her, never talked to her, didn't want anything to do with her. She was an ex-girlfriend, so I
right,
mean,
I guess the long and the short of it is when you and Damien were together, he wasn't out at the pagan cult meetings as far as you knew.
no, no, well, he was not. It's far-fetched and
So the
pretty
other
far-fetched, actually.
the other thing people say, bring up, is that Damien wanted to sacrifice his child, but decided not to. Have you ever heard that before?
No, I haven't, but that's if I would have heard it, I'm pretty sure I'd have been mad. I'm a little mad about it
Yeah.
now. It's terrible.
I mean, I don't know that he
Like,
actually said it.
why would somebody even come up with this stuff? Like, how do people even come up with this stuff? Like, do they must sit around and have nothing better to do with their time in the world than to make up weird, horrible stuff?
And that's what's so weird for me coming into it so much later. Because my initial thought was, oh, satanics, whatever, but then you read the stuff and there's all these people telling police that I was at the coven meeting with Damien, or I heard Damien say he wants to sacrifice his child to his dark gods or whatever, right?
Like, why? Why are you? And if you're telling the police this, like, what is, like, are they telling you to tell them this, or are you just? To me, it was like that you had to have been telling them for some kind of attention
Hmm.
getting reason. I don't know.
So Jennifer Bearden, do you remember Jennifer Bearden? She was a girl in Tennessee. I think she was 12 or 13. And she was sort of talking to Damien on the phone. Some people refer to as his like other girlfriend or say that she wanted to be his girlfriend. I don't, it seems like
I
based on the
don't
files,
know
you
who
didn't like
that is.
her very much.
I have no idea who that is. I
Okay, so you
honestly
don't
don't
remember
remember Jennifer Bearden,
her.
so
Okay.
no
Do
idea.
you do you remember any there's also a girl named Holly George. Do you remember her?
Nope.
And you honestly would not have had
Can't recall all either.
you probably wouldn't have
Um,
had that many interactions with her. The
I don't think I
Jennifer
had
Bearden,
any connections
th-
with these people.
this is
Either
also
one of these
probably
people.
this is probably also strange to you that I'm telling you things that happened in your life that you don't remember.
Yeah. I was like,
So
wow, this really happened? Because I don't remember that.
so Jennifer Bearden is the
Okay.
girl that Damien says he was on the telephone with from about between 9 and 10 till later on in the night of the murder. So she's part of his alibi. And
Yeah,
she
I don't,
says
no idea
she
who that
met
is.
you once at the Lakeshore Trailer Park, like at the lake. She was there for some reason, and you kind of gave her a mean look or whatever because she was talking to Damien. But you don't recall any of this.
Nope,
Okay.
nope. I would say I don't recall any of that. Nope.
Okay.
I the only I met the Jason girlfriend and her friend. I don't recall what their names were. They were the quote unquote baseball girls. That's the only reason I know them as is they played baseball or he went to some baseball game with them or something. I don't know, but as far as what their names were, I have no idea.
Jesse Miskelly. Did you know
Yeah.
Jesse before all this started?
Um, I only met Jesse like 3 times before all this happened. Like literally 3 times. That was it.
Was was he friends? You know, one of the big debates is was Jesse Miskelly actually friends with Damien and Jason? In your experience, were they actually friends?
They went to school together at one point, but as far as like us all hanging out every day, no. We didn't hang out with Jesse. He came over, I think, one time with a friend to Jack's trailer, left shortly afterwards, and then he met us at Walmart one time. We saw him at Walmart, just kind of walked around, and then, me and Jason and Damien went our way, he went his way. That was that was really about it. And I met him one time at a friend's trailer. It wasn't he would just happen to be there. But other than that, that's it. That's we never hung out with Jesse or talked with Jesse.
Were you surprised when all this happened that it was Jesse Miskelly of all people who was saying that Damien and Jason had done this?
Yeah. We're all surprised, I think. We're all like jaw-droppingly shocked. Like we were supposed to have done what? You did what with who? When? Where? And you witnesses? Okay.
Um, okay, so can you, to the extent you remember, I know it's been 30 something years, can you walk me through that day, May 5th, the day that the murders happened? What you remember when you guys were together and when you sort of went your separate ways for that day?
The day that they found the kids? Is
And the
that the
day
day that they
before.
found the
May
kids?
5th, the day that the kids were killed, and they were found on May 6th. So Wednesday, May 5th, they were killed. Then they were found about 12 hours ish later, 16 hours ish later on May 6th. So May 5th would have been the day where it's really important to know sort of where Damien and Jason were. You probably wouldn't even know where Jesse was because I don't think there's any indication y'all were ever together. Um,
Mhm.
but to the
No.
extent you remember that day, and you may not remember it at all, like I said, it's been 30 something years.
All I remember is us going to Jason's uncle's house to go mow the lawn, and then after that, we had Damien's parents come pick us up. He took me home. He went home, and that's pretty much the height of the day. That was it. Nothing different happened. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing. We didn't meet any new people. We didn't see any new things. Just an everyday, typical, average day for us.
And that's
Nothing
when it's
crazy wild
always
happening.
so hard is that day for you. You know, it's not like someone in your family disappeared that day. It's not like anything traumatic happened to you that day. So you're being asked 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, or even a couple days later, what happened, and it's hard to remember. Were you at the laundromat that day? Does that ring any bells?
But yeah, we. We were picked up at the laundromat. We were at the laundromat, and his
Do
parents picked
people
us up. And,
hang out at the laundromat? It seems like people were at the laundromat a lot.
no, we didn't go hang out at the laundromat. There was no hanging out at the laundromat. Just happened to be the closest place that had a telephone.
Mm.
It's not like we had cell phones. We had to go to a payphone and call the payphone, and we didn't have cell phones. If we did, it probably would have been a lot easier to prove where we were. That's for sure.
You get dropped off at your house, and then you just spend the rest of the night there. Do y'all go anywhere?
Nope.
Was it just
We
you
didn't
and your
have a
mom?
car, so we didn't have a car, so we didn't go anywhere unless we walked there. And if we were walking there, my mom was disabled, so she, the furthest place that she walked to was around the corner to the little store that was at Lakeshore and back. That was it. That was the height of our exploring outside.
And was it just you and your mom together at that time?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was it.
So I want to ask you about Narlene Hollingsworth, who
Boy.
who I guess at one time was your aunt. Might have, I don't know. It's so hard to follow Narlene and her sort of travails in her relationships. Um, but no, I'm sure as you know, Narlene, and it's a very important part of the case. Narlene and her family say they were on their way to that same laundromat to pick up Dixie Hubbard, and they're driving down the access road, the service road, right next to Blue Beacon Truck Wash and where the murders happened.
Okay. So first off, let me clear up a little bit of Narlene's little story and her little lie. The laundromat is clear across town. My aunt worked there, by the way. She no longer worked there after the trial or during the trial. Okay, so yes, my aunt worked at a laundromat, but it wasn't that little laundromat that me and Damien were waiting at. This was a laundromat clear across town. And so, as far as that goes, that right there starts her lying. I mean, just right off the bat, big fat lie right there. I don't know why she lies. I have no idea.
So it's a different laundromat than the one that you guys would have been at?
Totally different laundromat. Completely different laundromat.
And maybe that's me misunderstanding. I just always assumed it was the same laundromat, but I guess it's possible.
No. Completely different.
Was your aunt that worked the laundromat? That's Dixie Hubbard, though, right?
Yeah, that's my aunt Dixie.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you this: would they have been driving down that service road to go from their house to the laundromat to pick up your aunt? Is that a way that one would go?
To be honest with you, I have no idea because I didn't drive.
Because you didn't drive. They didn't have a car. That makes sense.
I don't. And when you don't drive, you have no recognition of roads or where they go to, or you have like a general area which is in walking distance. That's it. That's where you live. So, like I said, it doesn't drive. I have no idea why they would use the service road or even where that service road goes to. I have no idea. I know that the service road goes in front of the Blue Beacon Truck Wash now. That I know because, being older, I've gone back to West Memphis and seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But, then I have no clue as to where that service road went to or wound up.
So did you lived at Lakeshore, right?
Yes.
And Damien lived at Broadway Trailer Park.
I don't know what the trailer park's name was, but I'm assuming it was Broadway.
I'll put it this way. You live north of the interstate and he lives south of the interstate, right?
I would say yes.
One thing that some people have suggested, and I'm just curious if you know if this is true, that as Damien is sort of walking to Lakeshore, if Damien were to walk to Lakeshore, that one way he could have gone is through the little neighborhood, through the woods, to the interstate, and then basically up to Lakeshore.
That would be, I'm pretty sure. I guess, like I said, I have no idea where Broadway Trailer Park is.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're, like I said, when you don't drive and you're 16, you're sitting in the backseat of a car, you're not really caring about, did I go down this road? Did I turn at this road? Did I turn left? Did I turn right? No, you don't care. You just make it to
Right.
your point A to point B. That's it.
Let me ask you this.
So
Let me ask you this. Not necessarily the night of the murders, but is there ever a night that you could think of that you guys might have been walking in that place where Narlene says she saw you?
never.
Never.
Literally, the last time, the very last time, and this was years before the murder, years. I'm telling you, like probably 5 to 6 years before these kids were ever probably even born. My aunt lived in the neighborhood. I went to school at East Junior High. My aunt lived in that neighborhood. I went with a friend, and he showed me, well, you know where the pipe is?
Mm-hmm.
The famous pipe. I guess they have it. Yeah, they showed it on the news or some
Oh,
documentary or something.
I've seen it
That
many
stupid
times.
pipe,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The stupid pipe that's on there. Okay. My friend showed me the pipe and he walked across it, and I didn't want to get wet. So I stayed on the other side. He walked across it, walked back. I got all creeped out, didn't want to be there anymore, and we left. That is the only time ever that I remember even being near where those kids were found, ever. And as far as I know, Damien and Jason, we never went there. As far as I know, they never even knew that that place existed. And like I said, the only reason I knew that place existed was because I went to school right there. And my friend knew where it was because he lived in the apartments that were right next to that little cul-de-sac. Other
So,
than that, that would be the last time I ever saw that place, other than, after they, found the kids there.
do you remember if you had a pair of pants with white flowers on it?
No, nope, all black all the time.
The prosecution's theory was it wasn't you, that you weren't there at all, that it was actually Jason, that they saw Jason.
Don't
And
think so.
so the people, and I'm just going to name you the people who said that they saw two people who they thought were Damien and you. And just tell me
I
if you
know,
know
but
anything.
I know who you're gonna say.
Yeah.
So go ahead and say it. I'll tell you whether it's true or not.
And also just why, if you know why they would lie, or they just go along with her or whatever. So Ricky Hollingsworth, her
Mm-hmm.
ex-husband, once an ex-husband. Anthony, who seems like honestly probably the least credible of any of them. Hollingsworth. Tabitha was another one. And Tabitha was one, like I said, Anthony, I don't
Okay,
know
let me
how.
tell you something. Tabitha was like 12 years old.
Right.
Okay, she was a little kid. I never, you know, she's gonna say whatever her mother says she's gonna supposed to say. I mean, it's like me trying to, if I was to go tell my 13-year-old, go down the street and tell the neighbor so and so touched so and so's car, he's gonna go
Hmm.
say that because I told him to. And then as far as her older boy, he had mental issues, like developmental problems.
Hmm.
So he was like dealing with a 12-year-old. So, of course, he's going to go with whatever his mom says. As far as her husband goes, I have no idea. I never talked to him, never saw him. I don't even think he came out of his house. So,
Why do you think they lied?
like I said, they were kids. They were little kids, and they were listening to their mother.
Well, I mean, Narlene,
And
mostly. Why
and
do you
their
think
mother
Narlene lied?
probably wanted her 15. I'm assuming she just kind of wanted her 15 minutes of fame. Why
How
she did it, I have no idea.
how prevalent was the idea that there was a reward for information leading to the killers? Was that something that people talked about and people knew about? Could that have been a
Yeah,
motivation for her?
I have no idea. I don't remember anything about a reward. It wasn't like it was broadcasted on the news or anything. If there was, I didn't hear anything about it. My mom didn't hear anything about it. My aunt didn't hear anything about it. So if that was something that was brought up, it was only to a few amount of people, I guess. I guess we weren't considered in the loop, I guess, on the cool reward money.
This is also going to strain your memory. But one thing people have focused on is there are reports that you and Damien got into a big fight on May 6th. So that would be the day after the murders. And people have speculated that that was related to the murders in some way. Do you remember that fight? And do you remember what it was actually about?
No. We had a lot of arguments about dumb stuff. So, nope, can't pinpoint one specific giant argument. Nope. Had a lot of little arguments. Little typical teenage fights about friends and girlfriends and boyfriends and just, why are you hanging out with that person? Why are you hanging out with this person? Just dumb teenage stuff.
What's your relationship with Damien now?
Now, as adults?
Yeah.
We talk here and there. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You grow up, life moves on.
And one thing I'll say is it seems like you've never wavered in your belief that they had nothing to do with this.
Never, ever, ever, ever did they have anything to do with it. Point blank, period.
Do you think any of them are capable of doing this?
No. As far as Damien and Jason are concerned, I have no idea what Jesse's capable of doing. So I have no idea because we didn't really hang out with him. We're not friends. We never were friends. So I have no idea on his end.
So just to sort of wrap up, if Damien was involved in some sort of cult, you didn't know anything about it.
Nope.
And you spent a lot of time with Damien.
Pretty much. Lots of time and never did any occulty stuff.
He never said anything to you that gave you any indication that,
Nope.
he was somehow involved in this.
Nope, never.
And so you said you didn't watch the documentary until you were older. So you didn't watch it when it came out.
No, I tried to, like, if it was on in a room, I tried to go the other way.
Absolutely. I can understand that. Were you surprised by some of the things he said at the end when he talks about being the boogeyman underneath the bed and all that stuff?
To be honest with you, I don't even really remember the documentary.
Yeah.
I saw it, but like I said, to watch yourself on TV, it's kind of weird. And to watch all these other people sit there and talk about the people that you love, that, your friends and your, high school sweetheart, and, talk bad about them, you'd want to turn it off as quickly as possible.
Do you know if the police ever considered you a suspect at all?
Me?
Just because of the Narlene story that you were there,
I don't know what they were doing.
But they never told you we're looking into you.
They didn't come up to me and say, "Hey, you're arrested, put you in cuffs," because that's the only time that we knew that we were in trouble. But no, they never said, "Hey, you're a part of this," or anything like that. But again, who knows what they were doing?
There are these reports that you didn't really see Jesse very much before the murders, but then after the murders, you actually did see him more. Like at one point, he comes by Jason's house and asks you to go to Blockbuster with him.
What?
Like I said, it's got to be weird that I'm like know all these things about.
So weird. That's so weird. No, no. I don't think I would go with him even if he did say, "Hey, let's go to Blockbuster." I'd be like, I think my mommy's calling me. I gotta go.
Yeah. So there was a kid named Ken Watkins is his name. And Ken said that you, Damien, and Jason went to Walmart to play video games that day, that you ran into LG Hollingsworth.
No. I
So,
never ran
okay.
into my cousin. My cousin only went to my house. Never, we never ran into each other at Walmart or anything like that. Me and my cousin didn't hang out. The only time that we hang out was at my best friend's because he was dating my best friend. That was the only time that we hung out with LG.
What was your LG Hollingsworth is a popular alternative suspect. What was your opinion of him?
He was my cousin.
You don't think he did it?
No. No. Sorry, not to speak ill of the dead, but he was my cousin and I did love him very, very much. And my best friend was very much in love with him. But he was too can short of the 6-packs.
Gotcha.
You know?
Gotcha.
We don't think he was capable of getting away with something like that.
Gotcha. Which is, I mean, that's one of the questions, is because whoever did this managed to do it without leaving any real evidence.
Yeah, I wish I'm hoping that we'll be lucky, like the Delphi murder case. I watched that on the news, and I guess the killer went crazy and confessed to everything and said, "Here's a bunch of evidence." I would like the killer, whoever they may be, sitting in the basement somewhere, to come out of the basement and say, "Yeah, here I am. I have all the evidence. Here you go." That would be something.
Do you have
or
any?
To have the DNA evidence released to at least give Jason's team a direction to go in would be awesome.
Do you have any thoughts on who's responsible, or is it you have no idea?
At one point there was in Bojangles there was some report that some homeless guy with a bunch of blood all over him came into Bojangles and cleaned himself up and then took off down the road.
Yeah.
That person probably did have something to do with it. I mean,
would have been nice if the police had followed up on that.
would have been that. Pretty much, I don't understand why that person wasn't followed up on.
Well, look, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk. A few things. Number one, is there anything you want to say? Anything you just been wanting to say for the last 30 years and you ready to get it off your chest and tell people what for? Is there anything like that on your mind?
One person, just one person. Now, and if he was, I wish he would have called him first to be on the show. And that would be Mr. Gitchell. Good old Jerry Gitchell. He said at one point on some news clip, after the kids were, caught, Damien and Jason, Jesse, he was all full of himself, and some reporter asked him, between 1 and 10, how likely are these people to be guilty of this murder? And he said it was a 12. I would love to ask him, what is it now, Gitchell? Is it still a 12 now? Is it? What is it? What's the big number now?
He's on my list of people to talk to, so we'll see.
I'm petty about that one. That one just ate me up for 30 years.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us for this special episode. And once again, I want to thank Domini as well. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. prosecutorspod@gmail.com. And until then, I will see you in the next episode.